Well, I want to just welcome Lily and Phil, Anna, Steve, Viola, First Lady Donna, Jill and Scott, Shara, Zola, Kathy, and Susanna. So glad that you're all here today. If you'll join me, let us prepare ourselves. Put your hand over your eyes. I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And your ears. I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now just put your hand over your heart and extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that we need the darkness and the light to grow. We need the darkness and the light to grow love and connection and success. We need the darkness and the light to grow healthy families, healthy partnerships with our beloveds, healthy recreational choices. You know, we're in the dark time of the year right now, and it's a powerful part of our growth process if we allow it to be. We're in a series, as you know, of doing all of the winter holidays that sort of express the light that we are. And we want to pay close attention to the spiritual lessons available to us here in the pagan holiday of Winter Solstice, which is celebrating the shortest day of the year. Now, if you're visiting today, I want to remind you, we're not asking you to be pagans. We are asking ourselves to put away the idea that there is anything out there that is separate from us. Either we believe all paths to lead to God, or we don't. And at CSA, we do believe that. We're not afraid to look at what other paths have to offer us. Pagans is like a lot of things that have received bad press over the years. Once we look deeply into the teaching, we find that we have more in common with pagans than not. The spiritual truth is spiritual truth, and it may come in different languages, with different customs, and even in different interpretations. But truth is truth, and the truth will set us free. As I say every year, the word pagan simply means earth dweller. And pagans, their spiritual focus is to love creation as much as they love the Creator. It doesn't seem like anything for us to be afraid of or think poorly of. So as we've done with Bodhi Day, which is the enlightenment of the Buddha, and Hanukkah, which we did last week, which is the celebration of freedom and the light that you are through the Jewish tradition, today we're working with Winter Solstice. So I'm going to ask our praise team to come up, and if you're comfortable, please stand where you are in your homes and face the east wherever that is.
You are sacred, and you are looking at me. I pray to you, I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred, and you're looking at me. Grandmother, I see you sitting in the south. You are sacred, and you are looking at me. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred, and you're looking at me. Grandmother, I see you sitting in the west. You are sacred, and you are looking at me. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred, and you're looking at me. Grandmother, I see you sitting in the north. You are sacred, and you are looking at me. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred, and you're looking at me.
Thank you. So that's one of many ways of bringing in the directions, which is a common earth-based tradition as we celebrate this holiday. Winter solstice is about noticing change. We're changing from fall to winter. We're seeing winter change, the weather change. We're seeing the landscape change from foliage to barren. And like the change in our life, the changing of the seasons can't be delayed because our human mind isn't ready for the change. It's going to change. Fall becomes winter, winter will become spring, and spring will become summer, whether we're ready for it or not. Simply, it's time. Our soul is calling for change in service to our wholeness, just as Mother Earth calls for change in service to the Earth's wholeness. Perhaps the Earth is prepared for change after these millions of years, but most of us are not. We don't care for change. We rarely invite it in. And if we do, we let the universe know exactly how we'd like the change to proceed. We'd like it to proceed orderly, gently, and with an obvious outcome that we've imagined. For instance, you might say, I want to stop being alone. That's the change that I want. Let me just see what's going on here. That's the change that I want. I want to ride off into the sunset, and I want to grow old together. And by the way, I'm perfectly fine. I don't need any internal change. They get what they see, and if I have to change, I don't really want them. The Tao teaches us that we are always emerging, flourishing, and dissolving. That's the eternal process. And to know that process is enlightenment. To miss that process is disaster. The reason we have disaster in our lives very often is because we didn't understand this particular principle of life, that we are emerging, we are flourishing, or we are dissolving. It's one of the universe's safeguards against our tendency to settle. We human beings, in the interest of avoiding the storms in our life, we tend to settle. But that isn't how it works. Once you stop flourishing, your soul will begin to natter at your mind until you dissolve that which is no longer flourishing, that which no longer served you. Scary though it might be, you will emerge again. Now, this will never happen until you're strong enough. The storms never come until you're strong enough to land in the dark for a time. It might not be much stronger than you were yesterday, but it'll be just enough stronger to handle it. When you're in the dark time, when you feel like you're dissolving, hold on. Like our choir says, hold on. You're not alone. You're in the process of life that holds a new promise for you. There's no possible way for you to be on a journey to take you from where you are now to where you want to be without change in your life. Change always comes, and it rarely shows up at our door with bouquets of flowers and a bottle of wine. It shows us sweeping us into some version of the winter dark time and providing the nutrients we need. Change is life doing its job of fulfilling your destiny, not denying it. But there's one thing that never does change. The spirit within you. It never changes. The spirit being that you are is always filled to capacity with love and compassion and abundance and creativity and all of the other characteristics of God. The human part of you changes as your environment changes. Some of us used to wear bell bottoms or afros, but we've changed because our environment changed. It's a good thing that we changed. Before the murder of George Floyd, some of us thought if black people would just cooperate with the police, if they would just not talk back, if they would just put their hands on the wheel where the police could see them, if they would just not wear hoodies, then things would be okay for them. And then we saw with our own eyes that George Floyd did none of those things, and it still wasn't okay. And we changed. It's a good thing that we change. When we change in harmony with Spirit, the light that you are will become brighter. And that's what Winter Solstice is all about, reminding us that we are light and clearing away anything that covers up our light, that makes us shadows. You are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe, a universe that is friendly and supportive and wants you to be happy and succeed in your dreams. In fact, it's set up to help you by being governed by spiritual laws. To have absolute bliss in your life, in whatever way you want that bliss to look like, you can have it. If you are in harmony, if you follow spiritual laws. Our work here at CSA is to provide you with classes and teachings to make down-to-earth practical sense of these laws. These laws that you can't amend or repeal, and these laws that are exacting. There is no leeway in the law. Send love out, and you will get love back. It might not come from the place that you were expecting it or even desiring it. But if you are open, if you send love out, love will come back every time, no exceptions. Conversely, if you send out doubt and resentment and suspicion, that's what will come back. No exceptions. We are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual laws. One of the spiritual truths that's a bonus this morning is that God doesn't need any help in making the law work. In fact, when we begin to try and help make the law work, we cover up this light that Winter Solstice is trying to help us understand that we are in our life. There's no new sheriff in town with your name on it. One of the ways we unsuccessfully try to help God is to fix other people. Most of us want to fix someone because we're trying to be helpful. The problem is that we may even help them in the short term, but we send them on a detour on their journey home. I don't know how many parents I've dealt with of adult children who continue to give money to their adult children trying to help them when they're actually deterring their journey in life to being self-successful adults. But parents of young children know this. I'm not talking about not setting boundaries and teaching children manners. The world does not need more children with bad manners and entitlement issues. When one has reached grown folk status, the teachings cannot come from parents or bosses or friends in the way of advice or pressure or punishment. Those don't heal. Love heals. And sometimes that love needs to be sent to our friends and our family members from a distance. But actually, I'm not talking about the helpee. I'm talking about the helper, the fixer. Because when we get into fixer, when we try to change others to behave in a way that is pleasing to us or even pleasing to God, we're operating outside the spiritual laws that are governing us, and we become miserable. So let's look at some agreements that we brought into that support our fixer habit. And remember, the fixer habit is one of the ways that we sabotage the bright light that the season is trying to celebrate. Number one, you try to keep everybody happy all the time. This is completely a no-win situation. You do not have the right or even the power to make anybody happy or unhappy. As they say in Al-Anon, you didn't cause it and you're not going to cure it. Happiness is every individual's job. When my mom had to go into an assisted living situation, I tried everything I could think of to make her happy. I drove myself crazy. I can honestly say that my life was miserable because nothing I tried to make her happy with this new living situation worked. My brother, who the woman actually liked, wasn't fanatically concerned with her happiness. And when I could stand back and see how happy he was, I backed off my ridiculous campaign. And here's what happened. She started going to events and planting a few flowers in her courtyard. If you're trying to make someone happy, Back off this week and see what happens. Number 2, you equate worry with love. Worry is not an expression of love. It's an expression of fear and mistrust. God's got your back no matter what. And God's got the people you're helping's back no matter what. And when we trust that, we never have to worry again. Any practitioner or minister here at CSA will tell you that when you worry, your attention is completely on the wrong thing. To be successful, we focus on the solution. And the solution is always returning to the way the universe is governed by spiritual law. Now, I have to be careful because there's some confusion in metaphysics. There's some thought that we never mentioned that a problem exists. For instance, I might say, oh, my hair is on fire. And I might get a bubblehead metaphysician who comes and say, oh, don't you mean that the appearance of fire is in your hair? Well, maybe. But because we've been talking and dancing around this for so long, I don't have any hair left. Ernest Holmes was very clear in his teaching. We don't deny the condition. We deny the condition is the truth of who we are. I am whole, perfect, and complete. I have the condition of alcoholism in my lifetime. I won't take my alcoholism with me when I drop this meat suit. But until that day, hopefully a long time from now, instead of denying my condition of alcoholism, I look at it until I see the face of God. After being in a number of recovery programs for people with food addiction, I actually personally know people who are no longer diagnosed with diabetes because instead of denying they had food issues, they looked straight at it until they found the face of God. And now their blood tests come back normal, they're off insulin. By living within the spiritual principles and practices of discipline and balance, in this case with food, they move closer to the truth of who they are, whole, perfect, and complete. When Ernest Holmes says, and if you're joining us today, Ernest Holmes is sort of the founder of our teaching. When he says we turn away from the howlers, he means we turn away from the fixers. Only God can help. Only God heals by revealing the truth. Habit number 4, you label people. This is an enormous invitation to try and fix people. If you put them in a box, and it's a box that you don't like, or a box you feel society doesn't like, you often try to fix them. We don't need to fix transgender people. We need to get to know some of them. We need to support them in being the best versions of themselves they can be. Labels are boxes, and once we hear them, it's very hard to see folks without their labels. Many of us have heard the teacher who decided not to learn about a child before the first class. She didn't want to know anyone else's impression of the student before they could get to know them. Labels are limiting, and a limited life is not a spiritual experience that results from an individual or a society understanding that they are governed by spiritual laws. The law of oneness cannot be experienced when we put somebody else outside of ourselves. I want to conclude this morning with a prayer from a pagan, Maria Hodkins. Divine Mother, lead us not into the caves of smallness and blindness, and deliver us from the chasms of anger and hatred and self-pity. Help us to transform as the leaves with the seasons, greening, growing, coloring, dying, rebirthing. You are the wisdom of the ancients, great Mother, the beat of the universal heart. We bow to your holy womb, sing golden praises of creation, and rest in the peace of your bosom that passes all understanding. Let's take this message into prayer. In this dark time, we know that we are blessed in the same measure. It looks different. It feels different. It gives us different gifts, but a blessing nonetheless. I welcome change because it allows me to be more exquisite. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.